All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, SHIPIT Nation? We are back here with a windy / rainy weather environment on the West Coast for us here, but excited to talk some Tuesday hoops. We got a really fun slate tonight. We'll bring in Rio right away. What's happening, my guy? How are things?
Yeah, things are good. Definitely, weather's pretty crazy over here today. Went on a little walk before hopping on the show. It's like windy and then it's not windy. It's really hot and kind of cold at the same time. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this slate a lot. I think this is a very, very interesting one. Just to kind of give like a brief overview, I could see a slate like tonight where you don't really need to pay up for anybody 9K plus. I mean, the mid tier looks really, really strong tonight. There's a lot of really good plays and even some decently big injury news that could shake up the slate. So I think it's a really fun slate with two clear games that look like the best on the entire slate: Atlanta, Utah, and Boston, Denver. I think that Boston Denver game is going to be a lot of fun. Denver has generally been providing some really strong game environments as of late, and obviously Jokic, front runner for MVP, playing great right now. So I think this is a pretty awesome slate too. We might get some weird injury news in the Washington side. Even Miami might look a little different at the end of the night. So yeah, try to break it down as good as we can.
Yeah, those are two kind of on the top of my radar. We have obviously the Wizard stuff with some important Q tags, but the Miami stuff, obviously nothing's been labeled yet. But they played, I think all the starters played 40 minutes last night in that double OT game. So interested to see how that breaks down. But let's say what's up to some people in chat. We got our guy Ross in here, the TGL golf tonight. I am excited to kind of see. I didn't know that was tonight, but I saw some videos on it that will be fun. Roderick Pope wins a lot. Little Neck, happy to see Little Neck back, not only in the chat, but in the Discord. We missed you, so we're happy that you're back. Baddest123 calling his shot tonight. He says, am I winning first? Who's taking second? Love to see that. Jordan, Wardo, Parabay, Go Collect, Justin Rice, Desmond, Ranger, Takedown, Lyle, pretty much the usual suspects. Lock-in, Kid from Akron. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Like I said, we got a fun one. So before we dive in, if we haven't already taken advantage of this, we'll get out of the way early. PGA 100, take advantage, man. I don't know anything about PGA. I trust the content on the site. I had a pretty decent day cashing both my lineups in PGA with some fun sweats at the end. So a ton of fun. Take advantage of it. Gets you full access up until Super Bowl, which tons of slates, when they break down NFL. Obviously, Nades in the NHL is killing it. Can't wait to cash in some of the tickets that, I've been taking advantage of some overlay. So excited to kind of dip my toes in that in a couple of weeks. But use it if you guys haven't yet. Let's get in. Let me get the right overlay. I think it's typical for me. Let's start here. First game, Suns and at the Hornets. Suns 4.5-point favorites. The last that I saw. Yes, it is 225.5 total. Not really much injury news. I mean, Seth Curry's coming back. He's probable. Royce O'Neal is questionable. And Trey Man, Tree Man. I swear, every time I write his name in my notes, I end up writing Tree Man. I think it's a double E, double N, whatever it is. And Grant Williams out. What are we thinking here? Your Suns changed up some starting lineups last night. The game was pretty ugly. But where are your thoughts going into tonight's game?
Yeah, the starting lineup change, I guess, worked out pretty well because they did get the win, but it was still a pretty gross game. I mean, if you watch that first 18 minutes of the game, it was pretty bad. I mean, it was looking like it was going to be like an all-time low scoring game. I think it was 28-30 heading in halfway through the second quarter. So it was just really bad. But I mean, Bradley Beal had one of his better games of the season coming off the bench. He's going to still play starter minutes. The surprising thing was Mason Plumlee did not play a lot. Kind of alluded to this. I thought that he was pretty clearly going to play 20 plus minutes, but they're still going to mix in Nurkic, and he got up to 14 minutes. So it's 27 between the two of them. And then also Iguodala got in there for a good bit, up to 21 minutes. So I think that there's a chance that they just I think that Nurkic could really be out of the rotation here pretty soon. I mean, he's just so bad. And I don't know if you've seen that poll. I forgot which Twitter account is doing it, but there's it's like a bracket, or not a bracket, but like a I don't know, it's like a board where they're saying like worst player in the league, like most potential, like all these different categories, and they gave Nurkic was voted the worst player in the league, so that's pretty funny, but a bad look for him. But yeah, I mean, we saw Devin Booker take on a pretty big role over the last couple of games, last 3 games. He shot really bad last game, 3 for 16 from the field, but 9 assists in 3 straight games and 4.7 minutes of touch time per game over that stretch. I'm probably just going to be max 1 the entire Phoenix situation, with Booker being my favorite of the bunch. Still a good price tag, and he did play a lot of minutes, which is kind of what I was very interested in him yesterday. He had the double-double, just shot the ball terribly. I mean, he left a ton of points on the board. Played 38 minutes. I think he's going to be playing a lot of minutes right now as they try to get the ship right and get things back on track offensively and run things through him more. But yeah, he looked really bad the last couple of games from a scoring perspective. So I'm not really looking to get to too much on the Phoenix side, just max 1. On the Charlotte side, it's probably max 1 as well, with Brandon Miller returning, LaMelo Ball getting healthy as well. I really only have interest in LaMelo and Mark Williams in this one. Mark Williams running away with that starting center job, playing close to 30 minutes a night. Now he's priced appropriately at $6K, but the Suns defense still is not very good, even with the rotating center guys mixing in there. I think that he's got a little bit of upside, but on a big slate, there's a lot better options for cheaper, and a couple guys a little bit more expensive than him that project much better. So I'm not like going on my way to be above the field of Mark Williams. If anything, I would be more likely to full fade him than anything, but he would be in the player pool. And if I land on like 3 or 4 lines with him in there, I'd be okay with that. The guy that I do like a lot, though, is LaMelo Ball. The matchup stands out to me in a really big way. Phoenix has been very bad against lead guards this season. Bottom 7 pick-and-roll defense, where LaMelo ranks first in the league in pick-and-roll scoring this season. We just saw Tyrese Maxey have a really, really big game against them. I don't think they're going to be putting Ryan Dunn on him, which is probably too big of a mismatch. But the Suns are giving up a ton of three-pointers as of late as well. We know LaMelo has a ton of volume there. And he's looking at pretty low ownership when you consider that Trae Young is on slate for $200 more with no Jalen Johnson in arguably a better matchup. I just don't think that Trae Young is 3 times as likely to outscore LaMelo Ball. And LaMelo has a lot more paths to get there, because even if he's not scoring well, he's still got the rebounding and assist numbers that can flirt with like a triple-double on a nightly basis. He's probably going to play the same amount of minutes, 34, 35 minutes, which is what I see Trae Young projected for. So, yeah, I think LaMelo Ball is a pretty sharp pivot off of Trae Young in the upper tier, where Trae is coming in 20+% owned and LaMelo only 7 to 8% owned. But as a whole, don't really have a ton of interest in this game environment. I just think that both these teams play slow enough and just aren't really that great offensively for you to want to get more than one piece on each side.
Yeah, no, love it. I guess what my, kind of only question here regarding the Plumlee and Nurk and Iguodala stuff is, you watched the game, it sounded like last night, or at least the first portion of the game. Was that more because Yabu was in there kind of running big and they're really, what isn't a traditional center? Is that why those minutes were kind of skewed? Iguodala got a few more. Do you have a take on that, or it's kind of just doesn't really matter on the slate?
I mean, in terms of like a fantasy play, I don't think you're going to want to mess with it, but I do think in terms of the outlook for like the team, they're just trying to run out different lineups and get a feel of who fits in best. I think that Iguodala probably fits in better, but it's definitely going to be more matchup based, because no Embiid, obviously you're okay running out a smaller ball center like Iguodala, but for certain matchups when Embiid or like Jokic, you're going up against those guys, you're going to want a guy like Plumlee and Nurkic probably taking up more of those minutes. I think it was definitely a matchup thing, but yeah, this is going to be a 3-man rotation at center is definitely not something you want to mess with.
Absolutely. And I love the take on LaMelo Ball. I mean, if you put them in a vacuum together, and all the ownership's going one way, not only can LaMelo and them kind of go at each other for points and assists, but I love what you said, LaMelo getting extra rebounding increase versus Trae Young. Nothing really to add there. This is the interesting one we got to kind of talk about here and kind of talk scenarios. Rockets at Wizards. Rockets 11.5 point favorites, or is it up to 12? It's up to 12 now. So gone up a point over the last couple of hours, 224.5 total. The usual, not usual suspects, but a ton of injuries here. Jalen Green got the questionable tag. That's important on the Rockets side. Obviously, Jabari Smith is out. Eason is doubtful. Brogdon, Bagley are out, and then the questionable tags on Poole, Koulibaly, and Bub Carrington. I think this is going to mean a lot to the slate based off what happens here pre-lock as far as injuries goes. So I'd love to talk through those with you, but what are your initial leans? And then we could dive into some scenarios.
Yeah, so the Washington side, it's really tough to figure out because these guys have just been like in and out of the lineup. Like Bub Carrington seemingly is always listed questionable and plays through it and will end up playing a ton of minutes. So I would think that he was the most likely to play, but Koulibaly has been kind of dealing with this illness tag for a couple weeks now. So he's pretty likely to miss, I would say. Played like one quarter a couple games ago and then got ruled out like pretty quickly. I've only played 9 minutes against Chicago on New Year's Day. So he's probably pretty sick, and I definitely don't want to mess with it in terms of like a fantasy play. But if any combination of these three guys miss, you're looking at a lot of minutes to go around because some of these guys like Brogdon and Bagley being out, not playing a ton of minutes, but those are two guys that are in the rotation. So you're opening up a lot of minutes at the in the front court at small forward, power forward for guys like Justin Champagnie, Corey Kispert, Keyshawn George, and then at the point guard position, if Carrington were to miss, then you're probably looking at Jared Butler starting, but they could just move guys down a little bit. Jordan Poole could definitely play point guard if he's playing. I don't know if it's like enough to want to invest deep into because they're only projected 106 points tonight, double-digit underdog. So there's a good chance that they're probably not even putting up enough fantasy points for it to matter. If Jared Butler's starting, that's a lot different because he's only 3K. You don't need a ton from him, and he's actually a really solid per-minute producer. But like I don't think you're really running to go play guys like Corey Kispert or Keyshawn George in this type of matchup versus Houston. The Houston side is definitely one I would prefer to get deeper into. But starting with the injury stuff, I think Jalen Green's probably good to go. He had the knee contusion, which is about the best injury tag you can get in terms of knee injuries. Missed a couple minutes in that game against the Lakers and came back and was fine. So he's probably going to be good to go. But if there were a time to give him the night off to let the knee rest, it would probably be a matchup versus Houston. But he's a young guy, so I think that they're going to run him out there probably for pretty full minutes. But yeah, I don't see how you don't get to at least one of these Houston guys tonight. The Wizards playing a lot better defensively as of late, but still one of the worst all-around defense in the league. Bottom 9 rim defense, bottom 3 defensive rating, bottom 3 3-point defense, bottom 4 in transition. So yeah, I definitely want to get to these Houston guys a lot. I think Sengun, really good matchup for him against the Wizards, who ranked second to last in DVP to opposing centers. Minutes have been not great for him. He did get benched late in that Boston game where it looked like he was on his way to a really big game, was doing a little bit of everything, but didn't play a lot against the Lakers either. He's going to be right around 32 minutes on a nightly basis, I would say, with a little bit of upside for more, but you don't have to worry about matchups in this one. When you're going up against guys like Alex Sarr and Jonas Valanciunas, he should definitely have a big advantage there. So I think that he's a very strong spend-up option tonight at 9.3K. Ownership should be in check with there being a lot of value at center in some of the other games. So I think that he makes a lot of sense as a spend up. That's probably going to be pretty low owned. Fred VanVleet, I don't know. This is a good spot for him, I guess, 7.2K, but I don't know. I'm never really too excited about paying for him when I could get similar, if not better, production from Jalen Green at $900 cheaper and better eligibility. Point guard is usually a spot you're going to need a lot of upside from, and I don't really see Fred VanVleet doing that. If Jalen Green were to be in this game, if he's out, then that's a different story because he sees a 7% usage rate increase and is averaging right around 1.22 fantasy points per minute, which is a couple points above his season-long average. He's right around 1 fantasy point per minute producer this season, so that would be really good, and he would play a ton of minutes, probably close to 37, 38 minutes if Jalen Green were to miss. But if Green is in, definitely be max one of those two guys because they've been running a lot of their offense through Jalen Green as of late. They're running a lot of pick and roll with Sengun and Jalen Green to get Green scoring a lot more, and he's been scoring the ball really well. 20-plus shots in 4 straight games, put up 51 against the Lakers. I think this matchup profile is very similarly where the Wizards don't really have a lot of really good on-ball defenders, so he could definitely build off of that performance in 6.3K. Very good price tag for him. Definitely did not skip over Omen Thompson, but I need to set aside some time for him because he's just so good. I don't know if you saw the quotes from Steven Adams saying that he's never played with somebody like him before, which is like athletically, which is kind of crazy when you think that Steven Adams played with Russell Westbrook, kind of, towards the end of his prime, but still like.
Well, he
Actually,
was playing with him when he was triple doubling, right? He was his center for all that stuff. So that is a crazy statement.
Yeah, not end of his prime, but like he definitely wasn't as physically gifted as he was earlier. But I mean, obviously Russ definitely one of the most explosive athletes ever. But it was just crazy to hear him kind of say that when he did play with Russell Westbrook. But yeah, I just don't see how you don't lock in Amon Thompson in single entry. I'm definitely going to try to get above the field in MME tonight too, because I don't see a scenario where he fails outside of like injury or random foul trouble. This is a great spot for him. He just killed the Lakers, who are one of the worst transition defense in the league, and the Wizards are even worse. I think they're bottom 3 in transition defense, bottom 4 transition defense. So even better matchup for him against this Wizard team that can also be very turnover prone at times. I think he's probably going to get a double-double. Weak rim defense. He's averaging 42 DK points per game as a starter this season. I think last year it was even more. But yeah, his low fantasy output as a starter this season was 36.5 DK points with a ceiling of 49 last game against the Lakers. So yeah, he's one of the best plays on the entire slate in my eyes. So definitely gonna have a ton of him. And then Dylan Brooks and Cam Whitmore deserve a little bit of attention. I think Brooks has kind of gone back to, he remembered who he was. He had a couple of really good games. I just don't think I'm going to pay $5K for Dylan Brooks when all the other guys are going to have more usage and more offensive production. But Cam Whitmore is interesting because he would play in a blowout. And if Jalen Green re-aggravates his injury or if he misses, then you're probably looking at a really big offensive workload for Cam Whitmore. So he's got a lot more outs. He shot terribly against Boston when everybody was on him. Still kind of got there with 22 fantasy points. Played 34 minutes in the blowout, but only shot 4 for 17 from deep. A little bit more upside for him from a minutes perspective with Reed Shepherd being in the G League. So I think that he should definitely be in the player pool. He's got a good amount of upside. We've seen him pop off in a really big way in some blowout scenarios.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think they sent down Reed Shepherd as soon as he started complaining in the media, right? When Whitmore said something post-game, they sent him down. I'm hoping that Jalen Green does play so I can get some shares at the lower own, kind of playing for a blowout in Whitmore. Love it. Nothing really to add here. I mean, I agree with you. Jalen Green is most likely going to play in both of our eyes. If he doesn't, obviously Whitmore becomes super chalk, and I'm going to bump Fred VanVleet like what you said. Any interest? I know we kind of touch on the Wizard side. If Poole was to miss or if Koulibaly's out, which you anticipated, I'm kind of getting some Champagny stuff here. Tell me if I'm wrong. Obviously, if Poole's out, I'm going to run to Kuzma in hopes that this game stays close. But the Champagny stuff is certainly interesting to me as he's played real well. I know his price is high, but I mean, this is a guy who, how many minutes do you think he'll play if a Poole is out or if a Koulibaly's out? Does he get up into 30 minutes or is he kind of in the mid-20 range?
I think 30 is definitely doable. And at that price, he's definitely in play because you take off some of these guys off the court, just like the on-off stuff. He's like right around, if not like slightly below 1 point per minute. So he'd be definitely a fine value. It's just kind of gross. Like, I don't know if I want to. I would need multiple guys to be out on Washington, like probably both of Poole and Koulibaly to be out for me to get the Champagny. But I don't know, maybe Koulibaly. If just Koulibaly is out, he's probably still playing a good bit. But yeah, it is an expensive price tag when you compare him to guys like Najee Marshall with similar eligibility in this next game. So yeah. I think
a Rockets matchup is a little tough too. So they kind of throw it all in there. No, couldn't agree more. Let's move it on. Lakers and Mavs. We saw Najee Marshall last night. Almost got it done for our guy Title. Shout out to him. Did he finish third or fourth? I don't know, but he gave it a real run last night. So shout out to him a couple times this season. He's been real successful in those big field tournaments. But Lakers 7-point favorites. What is it down? Sorry, it keeps changing. 6.5 now. 6.5. 218.5 total. Looks like AD, LeBron, and Gabe Vincent are all going to play as they're all listed as probable. Obviously, Kyrie and Luka are out. Gafford doubtful and Cam Reddish doubtful. I'll let you lead, but Lively did play 33 minutes. I'll say it's no Gafford, so he's going to be a popular play tonight. What are you thinking about Lively and the crew over there in Dallas?
Yeah, I think this game is pretty sneaky good. The game total definitely wouldn't reflect that, but these are two kind of struggling defenses. The Lakers are playing a little bit better in comparison to their season averages, but they're still one of the worst transition defense in the league. Their rim defense has really not been good, which is kind of correlates with having a bad transition defense. But still, I mean, even you take away some of those transition numbers, they still have not been that great, which is kind of surprising when you consider Anthony Davis is down low. But yeah, the Mavs, they've been playing pretty bad since the start of the new year. Bottom 6 defensive rated team in January so far, which just kind of makes sense when you didn't have Najee Marshall for a bit. You were rotating guys like Gafford and Kleber and Dwight Powell, all guys that, and your front court is just getting decimated right now. Like they don't really have a lot of solid defenders behind Derek Lively, so definitely makes sense to want to attack this team right now with how poor they've been. You look at last night; they gave up a couple really big games to guys like Scottie Pippen Jr. and Jaren Jackson Jr. So I think that these Lakers guys definitely have a lot of appeal and pretty. The ownership should be held in check tonight. I think Anthony Davis is a really strong option at 10.5K versus struggling rim defense in Dallas. You're probably not going to be running out Lively for 36 plus minutes, so he's going to get like a 6, 7, 8 minute overlap of guys like Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber, and that he should just absolutely tear those guys up. He's played really well as of late, put together 4 strong performances with at least 59 DK points in 4 straight games. And the Mavs just allowed Jaren Jackson to go for 35 against him last night. So I think Anthony Davis as a pivot in the upper tier off of guys like Jokic. I mean, Jokic probably not getting a ton of ownership, but I think that from a points per dollar perspective, AD is one of the better spend ups in my eyes. And the same with LeBron. I'm definitely going to be max 1 AD and LeBron on this big of a slate, but I feel pretty good about one of these guys getting there in a decently big way. More so Anthony Davis. I lean him a little bit more, but LeBron's point guard role is pretty much split down the middle with him and Austin Reeves splitting it with the touch time being damn near the same. And since D'Angelo Russell left, LeBron has a 42.7% assist percentage and a 29% usage rate, which is a team high. Matchup could be a little bit tough against PJ Washington, but not really too worried about that. Obviously, LeBron, one of the greatest of all time, so it doesn't really matter. And he's got the peripherals to go along with the scoring. Mentioned how JJJ just went off for 35 against them, so I think one of AD or LeBron should put up a decent scoring night against this struggling defense. And then Austin Reeves, you're definitely only going to want to play the top 3 guys for LA, but Reeves has had a really strong role since D'Lo has been shipped off. Double-digit assists in 5 of his last 6 games, a triple-double in one of those games. Playing all the minutes he can handle right now. Maybe gets dialed back a little bit more with Gabe Vincent returning. But he still had a really good role, second on the team in assist percentage at 35.6, and then third in usage, first in touch time at 7.1 minutes per game. So really good role for a lead handler like Austin Reeves. Probably not going to get to any of these secondary pieces. Maybe you keep Dorian Finney-Smith into the player pool. He is starting to eat into Rui Hachimura's minutes a little bit, so definitely something to keep an eye on moving forward. I don't think they're going to bench Rui for Dorian Finney-Smith, but I expect him to continue to eat into those a little bit. They obviously traded for him for a reason. They needed that 3-and-D guy, and he definitely fits that role. So keep an eye on that moving forward. On the Dallas side, in the 1-game sample for the new lineup, we saw PJ Washington lead the team in usage at 29% with a 13.5% rebounding rate. 6.7K is reasonable. I think there's still some upside at that tag versus this Lakers defense that's struggling with their rim defense. His drives were up to 13 last game, only 6 points off of drives, so not that great. But I still think there's a little bit of upside for PJ, and he's going to be getting overlooked in the upper tier or in that mid tier. I don't mind him as a last man in. I'm probably not going to mess around with much. I definitely think that Lively and Najee are 2 of the better value plays on the slate with no Gafford for Lively. He's going to play a ton of minutes, like you said, played 33 against the Grizzlies last night. If you get 30 plus minutes out of Lively, he's going to get a double most likely. And the matchup is not too bad. Obviously, there's a little bit of foul risk with the matchup against Anthony Davis, but yeah, I mean, if Lively's playing 30, 32 minutes, like he's definitely one of the best values on the entire slate. And then same for Najee Marshall. His role was decent as the lead guard. I guess you can consider him like the point guard. It was kind of a mixture of like him and PJ handling things. His role didn't really increase too much. He was a solid 22% usage rate last game, 13% assist percentage. Did take 15 shots, which is good, and 4.6K is a very good price tag for him, and what should be a decent matchup for guards moving forward as the Lakers kind of struggle to defend guards. One guy I think that is kind of sneaky on the Dallas side is Quentin Grimes, because he's been arguably their best playmaker in the last couple of games. He leads the team in assist percentage over the last 3 or 4 games with Kyrie and Luka out. And I mean, he's played really well. This should be a pretty good spot for guards if you consider Grimes a guard. I think that he definitely deserves some attention and definitely deserves more minutes in my eyes. I don't really know why he's coming off the bench when I think he could easily slot in for Clay and play a lot better, in my opinion. But also keep an eye on Jaden Hardy, because there's a chance that he starts. They seem to be really getting away from Spencer Dinwiddie right now, and they are just really missing a lead guard right now. The offense kind of looks a little weird not having a true point guard out there. So I think there's a chance Jaden Hardy were to start, but keep an eye on that.
Yeah, that would be my question as far as the Hardy stuff goes. Like, obviously they didn't do it last night versus Memphis, but what about tonight? Like, I don't think that this is a spot where like you play last night and then you get the Lakers, who are ginormous, right? Like freaking huge. So I think they might run out that same lineup, but couldn't agree more on the Grime stuff. I feel like kids always talking about him and how great he's playing, and this would be a spot. But just to kind of pile on top of you, he led potential assists last night, so really like the spot for Grimes. So couldn't agree more. You touched on it all. I mean, PJ led in touch time last night, so that's real interesting. And then the DFS stuff over Rui. I mean, his price tag is low enough for me to get interested. I think he played 26 minutes last time out, and he played well late as far as that game went. So I could see, him kind of cutting into it, like what you said. I think they're kind of getting near that split. But I would kind of check DFS and Grimes as kind of the sneakier stuff off the bench. But love the breakdown. I couldn't agree more. You guys, if you haven't smashed the like button, shout out. I feel like Mr. Neighbors here is always in here chatting us up, letting us know that everybody hit the like button. So everybody keep doing that. As we're moving on here, T-Wolves and Pelicans. T-Wolves 5.5-point favorites, 222 total. Ingram out, Zion's going to be back. The question is how long. I think it's going to be low 20s maybe. It sounds like DeJounte Murray is going to play, even though he is labeled as questionable. I haven't seen an update over the last couple of hours, but I lean that he's playing from what I've seen on Twitter. And then Trey Murphy out. Ant's been shooting the ball. He said doesn't want to pass anymore. Randall's missed out on a couple of games of not closing recently. What are your thoughts here? They made the starting lineup change. Was it last night? And it worked out well for both parties, and DiVincenzo and Conley. So really interested here, as I think this is going to be kind of a huge key to winning on tonight's slate.
Yeah, for sure. I'll touch on the Pelican stuff quickly, because I don't think you're really trying to get too deep into the Pelican stuff. With Zion returning, definitely going to be on a very strict minutes restriction, I would imagine. Probably 25 is the high end. Maybe he gets in there for like 5 or 6, 4, or like 6, 4. What am I trying to say? 4 rotations of like 6 minutes is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, definitely going to be on a minutes restriction moving forward, I would imagine. And that definitely takes away a lot of the fantasy appeal on these secondary pieces. You could probably talk me onto some Brandon Boston Jr. filling in some of those Trey Murphy minutes. And the matchup's pretty good. The Wolves have really been struggling against 3-point shooters as of late. I don't know if you consider Brandon Boston Jr. a 3-point shooter, but he's a hooper. Like, he can get some shots up and probably plays in a blowout as well.
I would label him as like a scorer, right? When he's got the ball, like, you just feel so confident that he's going to shoot and be able to let it go in. Yeah,
for sure. Yes, like the guys I would want to get in my player pool if I'm looking to get into these Pelicans, definitely the shooters. So like CJ McCollum, kind of sneaky at 7.8K, but I don't know. I mean, he's shooting the ball really well as of late. It was 2 matchups against Washington, but he had the tightest career high. I think that first game with 50 real points, and then followed it up with 6 threes in the next game. So I don't know if there's enough upside from a fantasy perspective, but any of you bettors out there, maybe look at those 3-point lines for CJ. Yeah, but that pretty much does it for the Pels. Definitely not looking to get to too much. But yeah, the lineup change definitely came out of nowhere, but I think it was long overdue. And it wasn't really like they were like punishing Mike Conley or anything by shifting to the bench. I just think that you pair Mike Conley with guys that kind of fit his game a little bit more. You pair up Dante DiVincenzo with Julius Randle, who have obviously chemistry playing together in New York last year. And then you could put the ball into Conley's hand in the second unit a little bit more, and then the ball in Edwards' hands a lot more in the first unit. Oh, there we go. Getting the Miami stuff. I'm glad I got the Warriors 6.5 last night, I think.
You smashed that? Yeah, I teased it down. So I think I took away like 4 or 5 points, whatever it is. But what would you say there? We're going to get to it, but Hero's not going to play, right?
I doubt it. I mean, there's no way. These guys played so much, and he's played a ton of minutes lately too. This has been a pretty brutal road trip for them. So I think that they kind of just punt this game off. Yeah, well, I guess I'll try to gather some thoughts as we get to that game. But yeah, continuing with this one, Anthony Edwards his role was really good in that first unit. He's taken 29 shots in two straight games, so the volume is way up. The playmaking was really good last game. He had a 42% assist rate, 34.4% usage rate, and 7.6 minutes of touch time. So even though Dante DiVincenzo was listed as the point guard, it's Ant. Like Ant is the one that's running things right now for Minnesota. I would say the matchup is definitely a little bit tougher against Herb Jones, but Ant is really, really turning the corner right now, and I kind of want to buy into it before that price levels back out into like that 9K range. We even saw him like 9.8, 9.9K at points this season. So 8.4K for Ant is really good and not a ton of ownership. Definitely would be max one Randle and Edwards. I think Randle's range of outcomes could vary night to night, just not sharing the court with a guy like Conley who's going to take away some of the assist upside. But they'll run the offense through him a little bit more, and this is a good matchup versus a weak rim defense. I don't think that Randle is not in play, but I think for him, in order for him to have a really big game, it's probably taken away a little bit from Anthony Edwards. Like Ant could still put up like 35 real points and score 42 fantasy points, something like that. But Randle could, he had those stretch of games where he was right around a triple double. I mean, not really that close, but like 7, 8.
He was close though, dude. He really was. He had like 7, 8, 6, like all in like back-to-back games.
Yeah, so I just think that if we're getting the upside from Randle, it's probably eating into Ant Edwards' upside from like a peripheral standpoint. So I would consider being max one of those two right now. Could be wrong on that. I mean, the price is pretty close together, so it's cheap too. Like there's a chance both of them get there, but
I guess I think you just gotta interrupt here real quick. I guess what my question is when you see the ownership on DiVincenzo and you see the ownership on Naz Reid, in big field stuff like playing for first. Do you see? I think you can kind of pair those together, and just that they both kind of have their outcome when you're fading DiVincenzo and fading Naz Reid, and even Gobert, who's going to be popular down to his tag. That's the only outcome that I could see we could play them together. Would you agree with that, or are you still staying away?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. You probably have to set a rule like if what would it be like if one of Dante and Naz, then like max one Ant and Randle, something like that.
Yeah.
Something that makes sense for sure. And yeah, definitely piggybacking off that. I think all of those guys are just way too cheap right now. Rudy, Dante, and Naz. I mean, Rudy's not really getting too much ownership. This is kind of crazy to see him at 5.5K. I know he's not like the best fantasy producer, but he did what you needed him to do last night. He played 38 minutes against the Clippers. Probably another matchup where, I mean, they don't need to play him a ton with there really being no true center threat on the other side. But I mean, still, there's probably a good chance he gets a double-double here pretty quickly with how bad the Pelicans are with their rim protection. And he's still taking 6 to 8 shots a game, which you just need him to make 5 and maybe get to the free throw line 1 or 2 times and knock those down. But he's definitely going to get the rebounds, and the steals and blocks should be pretty good versus with Zion attacking the basket, DeJounte attacking the basket, and missing out on a guy like Trey Murphy who's going to be launching 3. So I think that the upside is definitely there for Rudy. And same for Dante and Naz. I think both those guys are going to continue to play more and more. Probably don't want to pair Naz with Randle, but definitely would be max 2, as always, of Randle, Gobert, and Naz. And then probably be max 1, Dante and Conley. But I think both those guys are 2 of the better values on the slate. I really like Dante. I think this is a good spot for him. He didn't really have the role change like we would have expected with him being the starting point guard, only 1 assist. But the rebounding rates really spiked up last game, and this is a great opportunity for him to get some scoring going with the Pelicans being so bad with their 3-point defense and their transition defense. Dante's definitely going to be a guy that's going to want to push the pace. So I like him a good bit with that point guard, shooting guard eligibility. and you can always play Nas too. Like I don't think this is a matchup where his minutes get dialed back. Like I mentioned, you definitely see guys like Rudy and Randall kind of get uptick more when they need more defense. They don't really need that tonight, I don't think, with Zion being pretty limited.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. The DiVincenzo stuff, I think, with the one assist, I think that's going to fall into like a Clippers matchup, maybe. Now you get to go from Clippers to Pelicans. So I absolutely love it. And I could go down. Maybe I miss you say it, but I personally think you're going to need one of these guys from the T-Wolves and, a pace up, pretty favorable matchup to put something. But before we move on to the next game, I doubled down on the Brandon Boston stuff. I think he's cheap. He's going to shoot when he has the ball. He got some run and he finished out the whole fourth quarter last time out. So really interesting play at somebody coming off the bench at sub 4K. Moving along here, what do we have? 2 left, 3 left. Another interesting one here. Hawks and Jazz. Hawks 6.5-point favorites, 239, almost 240 total. I could go down the laundry list of injuries here, but it looks like Trae Young's probable. He's going to play. Bogdan is back. He'll play. Larry Nance out. That doesn't really matter. Jalen Johnson out. That's important. Can't wait to see him come back after the shoulder stuff that's been bothering him for a little bit. Clarkson out. Lauri Markkanen is questionable. John Collins out with, I believe it's personal. Keontae George out, and Sensabaugh, which is interesting, questionable tonight. Don't think I missed anybody of importance there. But this is going to be another game people are looking to target, looking to get some value, looking to play studs. So this one's going to be important to the slate as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned Clarkson too, but he's going to be out as well.
Clarkson's
So
out.
very, very thin in the backcourt for Utah tonight. Atlanta getting Bogdan back. I don't know if he missed last game, but he's been kind of missing back-to-backs a little bit. So
I think he did. That's why Critchie got so much run.
yeah,
I think, because he doesn't really get that much run when he's in, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely a game that has a ton of fantasy appeal with how bad the Jazz are defensively, but they've actually been pretty good. I kind of attribute that to just the road trip for guys like Orlando and Miami coming in. Miami obviously struggling a lot right now, and then Orlando's without a ton of guys, so a lot easier to play defense against guys like Cole Anthony and Tristan Da Silva versus like Paulo and Franz Wagner. So definitely boost up those numbers for the Jazz defensively. But I mean, generally this is a team that's really bad. They're dead last in defensive rating this season, bottom half in rim defense. They've been kind of better there, but their three-point defense is terrible. Dead last catch and shoot defense, and dead last in transition defense. They'll one area outside of the rim defense where they're kind of okay at is their pick and roll defense has been really good this season. Definitely thanks to improved defense from Walker Kessler, but they're fourth in the league in pick and roll defense. So that's why I have a little bit of pause about playing Trae Young at ownership over a guy like LaMelo, who hypothetically has a better matchup. Obviously, you're looking at 13-point, 12-point different team total for Atlanta versus Charlotte, but I think the matchup slightly favors LaMelo, even though the Jazz have been kind of a place to attack with guards all season long. You're just Trae he's shooting the ball a lot better right now, made 3+ threes in 4 straight games, but we've seen him shoot really bad. I mean, look at as recent as Miami, we're at 3 for 13. Like, it's not a guarantee that he shoots the ball efficiently, because if he gets there, it's probably inefficient shooting from 3-point range. And he definitely relies on a lot of pick and roll stuff to get his scoring going, which I mentioned is just a tougher matchup for him. So I mean, you're gonna look to him for sure because it's the best game environment on the slate, I would say, with no Jalen Johnson. So I don't really want to talk people off of full fading trade, but I do think that LaMelo is slightly better at lower ownership. But I'll definitely get to some Trae Young and some correlated game stacks in this one because I definitely have interest in him. I think Dyson Daniels is actually really sneaky at 7.4K, and not for the reasons that you would think with taking off a guy like Jalen Johnson, who's pretty much second in every meaningful usage category for Atlanta. Dyson won't really see like a huge usage rate increase, but he is like just over 1 fantasy point per minute producer with Jalen off the court this season. Been pretty solid in games without Jalen this season, but the Jazz are dead last in turnover percentage this season, and Dyson Daniels is obviously one of the best defenders in the league, at least from a steals perspective. And I could definitely see a spot where we get like 6 to 8 steals from Dyson Daniels. If that's the case, you're talking about 12 to 16 fantasy points. All he needs to do is get a couple, maybe 10, 15 real points. He's going to flirt with a couple assists here and there. So I think that he's kind of interesting at literally no ownership at 7.4K. If he doesn't get the steals, then the play could go very bad. But the Jazz they just turn the ball over all the time, and you take away a couple of guys. I mean, Clarkson and Keontae are two really, really bad at taking care of the ball, but I wouldn't say that Isaiah Collier is much better, or Colin Sexton. And then if you take away Lauri Markkanen, like we're talking about like Micah Potter and Kyle Filipkowski, like two guys that just don't have a ton of NBA experience, I think that Dyson is really sneaky. The bigs, I have a lot of interest in. Clint Capella and Okongwu, definitely going to be max one of those two. And Eileen Okongwu, just the game flow should be better for him with it being more fast-paced. And Clint Capella kind of on the trade market right now. So probably don't want to get him too many minutes. Okongwu is definitely somebody they've invested more of their future into. So I think it makes sense to give him more minutes. And I like him at 4.6K as a value. Have to see who they start. I would imagine there's a couple ways it could go. It could be DeAndre Hunter. They like him off the bench, so I don't think it'd be him. I also don't think you're really looking to play him at 7K. But it's either going to be Garrison Matthews, Bogdan Bogdanovic, or Vic Krejci. I'm going to be max one of those three guys, and I would definitely lean with whichever one is starting. But the matchup is good for Matthews and Bogdan. I don't think that Krejci does enough offensively to really be viable. But the catch and shoot stuff for Jazz is they're dead last there. So both those guys, that's kind of where they get going. Yes, I would lean with whichever one is starting, but don't really love anyone in particular. I think Reece Shea is definitely in play also at 4.4K for the same reasons. He had that random game against the Knicks where he hit like 8 threes or something. So within the range of outcomes for him. On the Utah side, Lauri is going to have a really big offensive workload with the offense really just flowing through him. I don't think he's going to be defended by Dyson Daniels, so the matchup should be okay. Atlanta's dead last in three-point defense this season, but Lauri's just not shooting the ball well right now. 5 for 25 from three over his last 3 games. It is a get-right spot, but I don't know if I want to play 25% owned Lauri Markkanen at 7.4K. Like, realistically, what is his ceiling outcome? I have to look at his game log this season, but he's not above 50 DK points very often, and this is a slate where I think there's going to be some really big scores, and we're going to need pure ceiling from every position, in my opinion. It's not really – Lauri's never somebody I'm really looking to for, like, those 60-pointers. Obviously, he's probably going to do that tonight, but, yeah, I don't really –
If the line was 1.5, I would bet the under on over 50 fantasy points this season.
Yeah.
So I think it's like one time.
Yeah, I know he did it recently, and that was with a double-double against Detroit, and it was only 52. It's not like he didn't like blow the slate away. But yeah, with that being said, I don't think that he's out of play, but I don't think that he's somebody I'm going to be taking a huge stand on. If anything, I'm going to be underweight. And then probably if I'm playing him, I would prefer it in a back and forth game affair. So probably pair him with like a Trae Young or a Kongwu, something like that. But yeah, Kessler and Sexton, I think, are two very strong plays on this slate. Kessler is he's very trusted by Will Hardy right now. I think they're like real life friends outside of basketball too. I mean, Will Hardy's super young, so they're not super far apart in age gap. I think they hang out a lot outside of the arena, but that doesn't really matter. He's playing upper 30s minutes in close games. And definitely going to be needed here for defense on guys like Capella and Okongwu. They're going to run out full 48 center minutes, so we're probably getting 34 from Kessler tonight. On the I would say like the median end, the low end's probably 30 if it's a blowout, and then the high end could be in like the 38 range. And he's been very good as a per minute producer, 1.1 fantasy points per minute, double doubles in 4 out of his last 5 games. I think that he's a really strong option at pretty low ownership. Sexton is it's never really comfortable clicking anybody that's going to be 50 to 60% owned at 6K. And the matchup really isn't all that great going up against Dyson Daniels. He's been pretty much locked down against guards this season. The one area that the Hawks do struggle with is their pick and roll defense. They're dead last there, and Sexton's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. 1.25 fantasy points per minute with Keontae, Clarkson, and Collins off the court this season. Right around a 4% usage rate increase as well. So the matchup, I mean, the role probably trumps the matchup here, but I have some doubts that he hits a ceiling. But we talked about it pre-show. Like the team total for Utah is 116, and those points have to go somewhere. Probably going to be a lot of Lauri and Sexton tonight. So I will probably play a lot of him, but kind of reluctantly. And then these back end pieces, I don't know if you're really looking to get into them. Sensabaugh, good chance he misses with the midday downgrade with the Q tag, with the illness tag, which kind of sucks because he's been playing really well. Those minutes probably go to Johnny Juzang, Svi Mikhailuk, probably Cody Williams a little bit as well. Isaiah Collier is probably in play at 4.2K. Really good matchup for him against Trae Young. And he does a little bit of everything. Not shooting the ball well early in his rookie season, but he's a decent rebounder, and the assist number should definitely be there. So I don't mind Collier. I think there's a little bit of upside to him at 4.2K. Filipkowski's going to be tough to click with just center eligibility, but he might start tonight, so the projection could look a little bit better. Yeah, I think that's it for this one.
Yeah, no, you put it great. I'm on the Kessler stuff, the Sexton stuff. You put it perfect. Like the role could out trump the matchup, and very reluctant to click. But I mean, team total 6K, up and down matchup. It almost screams like, you hate it, but you have to click it. I guess what I kind of want to touch on is, as far as the Hawk side goes, love what you said. I mean, Jazz are going to catch and shoots, are pretty strong versus the ball handler. Trey scores in the pick and roll. And I feel like it's stuff we saw earlier in the season. But with him kind of coming off these high pick and rolls and like getting trapped around the sidelines, I think that offers so much upside to the guys that stand around the 3-point line. And, we could see these games where they hit shots. So Ricochet is going to fall in. I'm hoping for the Matthews stuff, because I think Matthews would obviously slide into a great play, just because Trey, we've seen those games where he goes his 13, 14, 15 assists because he has no option to shoot. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it. But I would lean Hunter starting. I know, like you said, they like him off the bench, but he did start the second half. So that's real interesting. And I don't think they're going to start Bogdan. So no, I couldn't agree more. And Kessler's going to be my favorite from the Jazz side. But this one's going to be real fun here. Celtics at Nuggets. Celtics 6. It went from 5.5 to 6 over the last couple of hours. Point favorites, 237 total. This one's going to be interesting to break down. We got Derek White with the midday questionable tag. Looks like he's sick. Aaron Gordon is still out, and then Walsh is questionable as well. Fun game environments, like you started the show with playing, Joker on one side and wanting to get pieces to the other side. What kind of pieces are you thinking from the Celtics? Because I would assume, Joker is going to be a good play.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, man. It's tough because Jokic is 12.5K, and we don't really have those really smash low price value plays. Like we don't have like a starting center at 3K right now, or like a starting point guard. It could change if we do get the Washington news, because then that would open up like a Jared Butler. And if we get Butler and allow us to get to Jokic, then definitely gonna look to do that, because he's just playing out of his mind this season. But as far as like a game environment goes, both these teams are kind of struggling defensively as of late. The Celtics, their rim defense has really picked up in a big way, but their 3-point defense has been pretty bad early on in January. And then the Nuggets, the game environment's been really good as of late. They give a ton of points to Cleveland. They had a lot of really big games against or over the weekend against the Spurs, a couple of really exciting games, and they kind of condense their defense. Like they're not capable of taking away the high-end offensive players on the other side right now with no Aaron Gordon. They're really, really missing him in a big way, because I don't think that Peyton Watson and Christian Braun are really ready to be that lead defender right now. So we've seen some really big games from guys like Wemby, like Trae Young a couple games ago. A lot of guys on the Cavs got there in a pretty big way. So I think that it's a pretty solid spot to attack for Boston. Obviously, it all starts with Tatum at 10K. That's a pretty solid price tag. Would get a lot better usage-wise if Derek White were to miss. I don't think White's going to miss, though. Obviously, he wasn't at shoot-around with the illness tag. I think they're just kind of giving him rest. But this is a homecoming narrative for him. Definitely going to want to play tonight. And the spread shifted more in Boston's favor, so I think that you're probably losing a point if White were to miss. Maybe not, though. I mean, they can kind of interchange that.
Slide Horford. That's what I thought, right? If he was to miss, they just slide Horford in to help with Joker. Yeah,
for sure. It would definitely be Horford. I don't think they would go with Hauser. I think whenever they have a fully healthy team and the one guy misses, it's probably going to be Horford in the starting lineup. But I would expect him to play, and also you're not really getting paid off in too big of a way if you were to miss, outside of maybe making Drew Holiday a little bit better. But his role probably doesn't change very much. And like White is not the highest usage guy. You're definitely more of like an off-ball shooter when the team's fully healthy. So not too much would change there. But yeah, like I mentioned with Tatum, I think that it's a really good spot for him with with no Aaron Gordon, this Nuggets team just really struggling to defend the lead offensive weapon on opposing teams. So I think that in a up-tempo game environment, a game that is pretty big, nationally televised game, so you have longer timeouts, we could see 38, 39 minutes from Tatum tonight, and 10K is pretty good price tag. So I don't really have much to say. I think he's an awesome play. I would say the same thing for Jaylen Brown. He is not too far removed from some massive games against Indy and the Orlando game, where he's still taking a ton of shots, hasn't shot the ball well over the last couple of games. The OKC game, though, it's kind of one you want to throw out the window just because OKC is so good defensively. I think they held the Celtics to like 27 points in the second half. I don't think that Jaylen Brown even recorded a stat in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. I think it might have been NBA Centel that posted that, but he definitely didn't do very much in the second half. I have to double check that, but yeah, I mean, this is a spot where you can definitely see he gets up for these big games, and I don't know who they're really going to put on him. Like Christian Braun is not physical enough to defend him. Russ is definitely slowing down, getting older. I don't think that anybody is really going to be able to slow down the Jays tonight. So I think one of these guys is pretty good. Probably going to be max one with these prices getting up there. And I definitely prefer Tatum. I don't think I'll play Derek White if he's in. Definitely a little concerned coming off the illness tag. Probably won't be a full go. Porzingis is really cheap. 6.9K is a good price tag for him. And especially if Horford's in the lineup, that would make his matchup a lot easier. Won't have to defend Jokic. And we know that requires a ton of energy. So I think
what did the Nuggets do if White does miss and Horford goes in, right? Like they can't put, Joker on KP in my opinion. So it's like he could just eat versus like a Michael Porter or Peyton Watson off the bench or whatever it may be. But damn, I wish he was power forward. That was it. He's one of the guys that you just wish because he's center.
Yeah, I don't know where like DraftKings gets their price or like the positional stuff from, because it could be so random at times. But yeah, I mean, it would, if you slide in Horford into the lineup, that's definitely sneaky good for Porzingis. I definitely agree with you there, because you're going to be matching him up with, it would be Michael Porter Jr. Like I don't know who else they would put on him, and MPJ is definitely not somebody you look to for defense. So that's kind of what I think about Porzingis. I think it's a little bit. I mean, Jokic has even given up some really big games to opposing bigs this season. I have to check the DVP stuff, but they're kind of towards the bottom half of the league, like bottom 10, I would say.
In some of these possessions, he just gives them the rim because it just give up the 2 points and don't pick up a foul because he knows he has to play the big minutes. That's the way that I'm taking it. Is like you watch some of these games, they go back and forth. And obviously he gets his rebounds and stuff, but there's been some of these takes to the rim where it's like not even a contest, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame him. Like he just has such a big workload offensively. Like they would be lost without Jokic in the lineup. And you've seen it. Like the last couple of years, the whole talk is that their second unit is so bad, and it's just such a big drop off talent wise and just offensively when you take Jokic off the court. So I definitely don't blame him for taking plays off defensively. You gotta preserve your energy for the offense. But yeah, I think that Porzingis would look really good if White is out, and then Drew Holiday I think is kind of in play either way, just because he does a little bit of everything, not scoring a lot, but probably a guy they would be more glad with him having a spike in scoring versus Tatum or Jaylen Brown or Porzingis or something like that. So he's going to get his shots up, so he's out there. Probably playing a lot more minutes in this game as well, with it being nationally televised, and going to need his defense on Jamal Murray. So maybe he matches those minutes, but probably playing like 34 tonight, which would be really good at 5.2K. The Denver side, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you could probably play Braun and Watson. I would be max one of those two as a value play. I'll start down low because I think the matchup is kind of better for Peyton Watson in terms of what you need defensively. I think that he kind of matches it better for Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I could be wrong there, though. They like Christian Braun. I just don't think he matches up very well. You like the length and defensive versatility that Watson provides. I think that he could probably hang with Jason Tatum. So I think that he makes a little bit more sense here, but definitely max one of those two guys. I mean, maybe he even eats into Russell Westbrook. Kind of seen those guys have a little bit of a push and pull. So maybe. So
that would be that would be my first thought is like when they have like those bigger lineups, like with Sohan back, like in the two matchups, right? Like in the first one with no Sohan, he played 19 minutes, and then when he was back in, he played 34 minutes. So I think this would be like a sneaky spot to see him creep into the high 20s, low 30s minutes. Could be super wrong on that, but like, let's say Derek White is out and Horford gets to start. I mean, where do you go to guard Tatum? Right? It's going to be. I don't think it's Westbrook. I could agree. I don't think it's Braun. I think it's Watson in a sneaky spot to get high 20s minutes.
Yeah. I think I agree with you there. It honestly makes sense to even start him tonight. I don't think they're going to do that just because the starting lineup has been pretty good for Denver with Westbrook in there. But yeah, I think there could be a little bit more minutes heading his way. I just don't see how Denver can contain Tatum with their current starting lineup. Like, they don't really have any good point of attack defender, so it's gonna be really tough for them. But yeah, I don't really have anything to say against Jokic. Like, he's the best player in the league by a wide margin. 40 plus points in back-to-back games, 82 plus DK points in both those games. He scored 82 plus DK points in 3 of his last 4 games, with the third game being 93 against my Jazz. Obviously, the Celtics are really good defense. They've taken away rim scoring with Porzingis down low, but I mean, Jokic is matchup proof. He's going to do everything that he can to keep the game close. And yeah, I have nothing negative to say. If you have the salary to get up to him and feel good about your lineup, but you definitely should. And then I think Jamal Murray is in a pretty good spot here. As tough as the matchup looks against Drew Holiday, it's not that bad because Celtics are a bottom 3 pick and roll defense, and him and Jokic have a really solid 2-man game. So I think that he's got a little bit of upside. He's scoring the ball pretty well right now outside of 2 down games, but I think you're going to want to get exposure to this one and probably see those minutes creep up a little bit more for Jamal Murray with those longer TV timeouts. I was a little bit higher on Westbrook now, but after talking to you, I think I'm kind of getting away from him because I do think those minutes could come away from him a little bit. MPJ has a pretty good matchup too, though. He's shooting the ball really well this month. 21 or more real points in 7 of his last 8 games, and the Celtics have given up a ton of threes right now, so I think that he's pretty solid at 6.3K. But definitely a game you're going to want to get into. I like the guys up top, but I think there is a little bit of upside on these value plays.
Yeah, no, the Michael Porter Jr. stuff is interesting to me. Like, I think like we're projected a little low on ownership. I think he'll be higher owned. And if that's the case, like right when I first saw it, before you mentioning, they kind of flipped. They were really good versus catch and shoot and gave up the rim. Now they're better at the rim and giving up catch and shoot. That's going to be something really interesting for me because, majority of the time when you get a Michael Porter Jr. popular, I'm okay fading it. But this might be a spot that's a little different just because of the pace of the game. But love it. No, I see a couple of questions in chat. I'll go through those before we jump into the last game. I saw earlier, I don't want to pull it up on the screen. I have to go way back up. But what would be your max number of T-Wolves in a lineup off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, probably 3.
3,
but,
got it.
Yeah, like we mentioned some of the groupings. Like, I don't think that I want to play Ant and Randall together. I don't think I want Nas and Randall together. I definitely don't want Dante and Conley. And yeah, definitely max 2 of the bigs, Randall, Gobert, and Nas. So yeah, I think you could probably you'd be okay having Dante, Nas, and Ant. I saw that pairing kind of hitting some optimals. Even you throw Rudy Gobert in there, I think you could definitely play 3 of those 4 guys.
Absolutely love it. And then we'll get to it at the end of the show. But if you had to say right now, top spend up 20 lineups, is there anybody that you're locking? Who would be your top spend up?
I can't say Jokic just because I don't think we have the value to get there yet. But I kind of really like the spot for Anthony Davis for those reasons mentioned. I think that Mavs defense is really, really looking bad right now, and it's going to be tough for Lively to play all 38 minutes that AD is going to play. So I kind of really like the spot for AD.
Yeah, no, this is a fun slate because as soon as that question comes up, I instantly think of 6 people that could enter that slot. So let's finish up strong. We got the injury news. I think it was just Tyler Hero that's questionable. I'll check in a second to see if anybody else jumped in there. But Heat at Warriors coming off a double overtime game, which was pretty tough for them. You losing Jimmy and you had I think it was a 17-point lead at some point in that Kings game in the fourth quarter, which they gave up and lost in double OT. Obviously, Jimmy's out. Josh Richardson questionable. Kuminga out. Pods is out. And then the additional news of Hero questionable. Warriors favored by 9.5. I think that goes up to 11, if maybe 12 if there's no Tyler Hero. But 216 total. What are we thinking here with some moving pieces as the night goes on?
Yeah, we definitely need to see who's going to get the start for Hero. It's probably like Duncan Robinson, I would think would be the most likely, but you're probably also giving some minutes to Alec Burks, like maybe Pelly Larson. I don't know. I just think that the Miami Heat are going to probably punt this game away, and the spread definitely reflects that. I don't really want to like get. I'm not going to like running to play Bam coming off of. Even though the fantasy points look really good, he did not play well in that game.
He's
Six for
been
19.
bad. He's been bad like the
he's
last
struggling.
week.
Against some really good matchups too. I mean, he should have popped off in a big way against Utah, against Indy. Definitely should have popped off New Orleans. He was pretty solid against, but yeah, I don't know. Definitely not something I'm looking to like run and play, even if Hero were to miss, because I don't think that they're not going to play him 36 minutes after playing 45 last night. Yeah, I just think that I think Spoelstra's going to probably loosen up the rotation a little bit. And if that's the case, it's probably unlikely we get any sort of meaningful fantasy score from these guys. I think you're probably just using these guys as pivots. Like if your plays like the earlier slate don't go that well, and you have some guys in that Boston Denver game, then maybe you get onto like I don't even know who the pivots.
For me, it's Jovic. He got like
Yeah.
mid-20s minutes, and all these starters, got their 40 minutes, specifically Hawkes, right? Like for me at sub 5K, like I find that as a super interesting pivot. Now that additionally, like I think he plays in a blowout, and I get the Warriors defense as well, but that would be like the only guy that I'm interested in. Curious your thoughts on that.
No, I agree with that for sure. I think that he's probably the best play on the Heat tonight. Yeah, for the reasons you mentioned, I think those minutes kind of get extended a little bit with all those guys playing a ton. I think he actually matches up pretty decently against this Golden State team that doesn't really have like a true big man. And he would match up for some of those small ball center minutes possibly against Draymond. I mean, they like Khalil Ware, so probably still getting all the non-Bam minutes, but still, I think that Jovic has a little bit more upside to his price tag here at 4.9K. So he's probably my favorite. Maybe a little bit of Jaime Hawkes again, just because he's young. He put up a triple-double last game, which was really tilting because it just seemed like every single ball, just like he was a magnet to the ball last night. It was insane.
There was like 3 plays where like the rebound bounced out to him, and then he made a pass and got the rebound and the assist.
Yeah,
and you're just like, dude, how did the ball bounce that way?
It was insane. And then he still landed on 5 steals. Like he was just everywhere last night. Like anywhere he went, the ball was going towards him. It was crazy. So I don't think that he's the worst option. But he played a ton of minutes last night, so maybe those get dialed back a little bit. Probably still notching like 30 tonight because he's young. But yeah, probably agree with you. I think I only like Jovic and Hawkes right now. I have to see how the projections shake out. They might do some weird stuff and rule out like Hero and Bam and Rozier or something like that, just because those guys are older. But
let me a hypothetical here. Let's say Hero and Bam are out. I hate to say it, but does Scary Terry Rozier become like a must play at 5,100?
It'd be really tough not to play him. I mean, because he's going to have such a huge role. I don't know if I would say a must play though, just because if the game gets blown, like they're blowing him out, he's not playing. Off. Yeah, he would be the first guy out because he's old. I don't know. I think they could just like dust off Alec Burks and play him like 15 second half minutes or something like that if they're getting blown out. It's just a gross game. Like I'm going to be leaning on projections. I don't really have a too big of a take with this one. I think like straight up right now, it's probably a game to stay away from on the Heat side. But it could get a little bit better if multiple guys get ruled out. I think that the Warriors side is a little bit better with just how bad Miami's defense has been, specifically against 3-point shooters. They're playing a lot of zone right now, so that kind of I don't think you're going to want to do that against a team like the Warriors who have some really good shooters. But it's a sneaky good spot for Steph at 8.7K. He's playing more minutes with no Kuminga too, going to have more on his plate offensively. Obviously, probably the best shooter of all time. It's a good spot for 3-point shooters. So I don't mind him as a lower owned spend up at 8.7K. Wiggins is probably the safest from a minutes perspective, and we've seen him really get extended in some games with minutes into the upper 30s. Probably don't need to do that tonight, but he's taking a lot of threes as well, not making them, but he's taking them. So I like to see that. But maybe those some of those shots can fall tonight. I think at ownership, he's probably not a great play. Draymond, I definitely don't like it. 5.8K just doesn't play enough minutes. Don't mind Schroeder. I think he's pretty good with a point guard, shooting guard eligibility at 5.3K. Trace Jackson Davis, I think, is really good though. Bam has not been the same defender as years past. He's really taken a negative turn, I think, this season. The rim defense has not been good for Miami. their offensive rebounding last night was terrible too, and that's kind of been a trend all season long. Trace Jackson-Davis hits those ceiling games with the rebounds. You saw him against Cleveland, who is one of the best rebounding teams in the league. He put up 16 against them. There's a little bit more downside to upside from a minutes perspective for him, but I think the matchup is kind of sneaky good for TJD, so I like him. And then I think Hield and Moses Moody are pretty interesting as well, filling in for Kuminga. It's a good matchup for the shooters, and I think that Hield is – I don't know, there's a stat I just saw before hopping on here. Like, he's like a 50-60% catch and shoot shooter, but off the dribble he's like 20%. So he just needs to catch and shoot it, and this is a good spot for him to do that. So I think that Hield and Moody are kind of interesting value plays that aren't really getting a ton of ownership. I think there's a good amount of upside for both of them.
Yeah, no, I love it. I those are going to play into kind of my thought here is like, I think this game blows out. You took it last night when the line moved. I took it again in the morning. So interesting spot there. If you had to pick one, Moody or Buddy, who are you taking?
I'll take Buddy just because the ownership is minuscule on them, and I think that he's got more upside. But I kind of want to get a little bit of both. I think this is just a spot where I'm going to kind of play into the matchup that I've been seeing from Miami. I think that both of them are decent tonight.
Yeah, no. And then I saw some people talking in chat about the Ware stuff. For me personally, like, I think Looney can stay with him. Like, if you watch last night's game, like, he played well, like, against the Kings, and it's like he was just bigger and more athletic than everybody. I think Looney can kind of compete with that a little bit, and that's if Bam's in and people want to play him low on. But nothing great here. All right, guys. Hey, that's all 7 games. We got it done as fast as we could. Great takes here from Rio. I'm putting you on the spot again. Is there anything you kind of want to like go out right now? If you were to sit on one thing on the slate that people could think about going into it 2 hours before lock, what would be your 1 or 2 sentences about how this slate will shake out?
I don't know. I think this is a slate where I just want to be very condensed with my player pool, because I think there's some pretty clear X outs that I just don't want to mess with that are getting like a little bit of ownership. Like, I think that Lauri Markkanen probably pretty bad chalk tonight personally, and I would just play into the secondary pieces. Like, I think that Trey, I mentioned pretty much in depth how I feel about Trey versus LaMelo, but I'll definitely have Trey in certain builds. But yeah, I don't know. This is a slate where I think I just want to be really condensed, and I think this could be one of the tighter player pools that I have all season long. So I'm going to have all my lineups all the way to the right or all the way to the left tonight is how I'm viewing it. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's 2 clear games you want to get into: Atlanta, Utah, and Boston, Denver. So I think that try to find unique ways to build into those, and then definitely keep an eye on the Washington news is what I would say.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love the LaMelo versus Trae Young stuff. I just love a build of a little LaMelo and kind of finding some shooters around Trae Young and look for him to pass more tonight. But guys, thank you guys. We had up to like 400 people. If you haven't already clicked the like button, it helps us out a lot. So go ahead and click it. Looks like we're out of here. Appreciate you, and everybody, good luck in your contest, and let's ship it.